Welcome to the Education Scotland podcast. In every episode, we are joined by teachers, professionals and experts to unpack some of the big questions and topics facing the education sector in Scotland. Stay informed with the latest on education in Scotland by subscribing to our podcast.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to this Education in Scotland podcast. This is the mini-series of podcasts that we've been doing around the curriculum improvement cycle. And in this mini-series over the last few months now, we've been exploring different cross-curricular themes. And I am absolutely delighted today that we're going to be exploring the topic of entrepreneurship with Senior Education Officer for Curriculum Design, Nicola Crawford. Nicola, welcome.
Thanks very much, Ollie. I'm really pleased to be here and actually talk about the work we've been working on for the last sort of year. That's
great, and I've been excited about all these podcasts, and you know that I'm really excited about the work of the curriculum improvement cycle and the work of cross-cutting themes. But this is one that I'm particularly excited about, and one of the reasons I'm particularly excited about it, as you know, is that just over a year ago I was actually at the very first session that you did, on entrepreneurship. Yeah. So I feel like in particular I've been part of this particular journey, like for the last year as well. But I also openly admit that I'm maybe not as up to date as I should be with some of the more recent developments over the last couple of months. So I'm really looking forward to getting an update as well. But before we do that, though, Nicola, I've got one question or one initial question to ask, if that's okay. So, like entrepreneurship is one of these words that means a million different things to a million different people around that. And I know that one of the things that you've been trying to do through this work is actually make sure that we've got a concrete definition of what we know about this in the context of Scottish education around things. But I just wondered if you could just maybe spend a couple of minutes telling the folks that are listening, what do we mean by entrepreneurship in this context?
It's one of the most a really misunderstood area of work, and it was really clear right from the start. We worked really hard in that. And there's so much more to entrepreneurship beyond business startup. And our young people, really interestingly, our young people from P1, P2, P3, that's what they're talking about that. And then the young people that have experienced something different could talk about something different. But then we go back to that business startup, and actually our adults think about business startup as well. So, if I was going to sum up what entrepreneurship actually is, it's really a key life skill that can be developed and grown. Our young people can have that and grow. That was something that people didn't really agree with at the start. That's a sort of misconception. And I suppose if all the work, if I was to say, what is it? It's really about making things better in the world for yourself and your community in the world by fixing problems and creating solutions by using sort of innovative means, and actually being really up for just making mistakes and keep going and having that really sort of failure. It's a failure, but what can I learn from it? So if I was to ask you to say to you what it is, and I think entrepreneurship's got this huge role in advancing social justice and when the actions taken are ethical, inclusive, and obviously environmentally aware, and that's what our young people are crying out to us to do.
And I think it's great. I mean, the way that you frame that, I think is just so important around that, because I think that that sometimes when you hear the word entrepreneurship, people think, oh well, that's business or that's business education, around all these things, and it's not to say, for example, that the entrepreneurship isn't an important part of a kind of a business mindset, but it's so much more than that, around that, and in fact. The reverse side of that, of course, is that you can run a very, very successful business without being an entrepreneur at all, around all the different things. There are really interesting things in there. So I think the work that you and the team have done to kind of challenge, if you like, some of these preconceptions of what entrepreneurship is, is really important. And you've kind of touched on this sort of next one, I guess already. The next question I wanted to ask you already is that, I suppose that some people would say that entrepreneurship has always been part of CFE within that, but maybe that deeper meaning that you've just described really, really well has kind of got lost over time. But why is this important now, and why is this important for the curriculum improvement cycle as we take this work forward?
So I guess I'm going to start with our young people. So our young people, when we spoke to them, those that experienced this and the things I was talking about there, it was life-changing for them. But it wasn't everybody. It was whether it tapped into within their business class or whether they tapped into with somebody that took an interest in it. So it's not all young people. And I suppose why right now is the current climate of the world. There's growing conflict. There's the fast pace of technological change as the growth of artificial intelligence. There's that ever increasing need for that emphasis on those skills I was talking about and competencies that's going to equip all our young people, not just some that have experienced it, not just to survive in this world, but to thrive in the future, which is really important for the individual, but also to positively contribute to our society and ultimately the economy of Scotland. And we need to keep at our forefront when we're developing this curriculum. How can we plan to build and capture that entrepreneurial capability in all our young people? So I suppose that's why the world is demanding it, our young people are demanding it, and it needs to be for all.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, around that. And you've made me, you've reminded me of a few things to sort of go away and think about, like a little bit more, like within that. That's really useful. Nicola, one of the things we've talked about, like as part of this podcast series, but we've not done it with all of them. So I kind of want to just mention this again for the folks that are perhaps listening to this for the first time or haven't listened to the whole things, is that as part of this work where we've been exploring cross-curricular themes, we've kind of set these 11 themes that we've been exploring kind of all up in the same way. And as you've already hinted at, we've been working on this now for about a year.
Yeah.
And it's really important, I think, that folks know that we had a similar composition of groups in the room that we were doing it when we were doing this. We had folks from academia. That's really important around that, different voices in there. We had key stakeholders, to do with the different areas within there, in this case entrepreneurship. We had a good combination of both primary, secondary and ELC and special schools practitioners, but we didn't just have the folks in the room that were into the concept of entrepreneurship. We also had folks in the room that liked the idea of it but didn't quite know where it was, but they wouldn't have called themselves experts, I suppose, at the start of the process, because what we've been trying to do through the process of co-design is make sure that we're basing everything on evidence, hence the academics, taking on board the external landscape, hence the stakeholder engagement, have those kind of enthusiasts in the room, hence the teachers and practitioners, but also the pragmatists as well in terms of what this looks like in practice. I just kind of wanted to recap that. And then, of course, you've met with this group like 3 times, like over the course of the year, face to face around that. You've had several sort of online check-ins. You've been out engaging with children, young people, like as part of that as well. And we I know we'll bring the group together at least one more time, probably before this work concludes, around kind of October time. But I suppose what I'd love to hear a little bit about from you is I've explained a little bit about the process there that we've been through, but what's the actual kind of like work like in the rooms around it? Like, I'd love to hear a little bit about some of the provocations, for example, that were set at the start, and then maybe you could sort of start to point us towards the direction of what are some of the emerging themes that were coming out of it.
Yeah, of course, and as you alluded to, we've brought together using that service design approach, everybody that this is going to impact. And that first day, so we had lots of these sessions you were talking about. That first day was by far the most impactful, where we had government agencies. So we had Scottish Enterprise really talking about for us to project, well, here's the future, and actually here's the gaps that we're having to plug with our people we're meeting, so that our education isn't giving those young people the skills that we need for the country. Really interesting. We had our academics looking at entrepreneurial mindset, why it was so important, and also why it was not just for people thinking about being an entrepreneur. That really shifted lots of people's opinions of that. We had quite a few academics giving the research about entrepreneurship, the impact in the country, impact in young personal social justice. And then we had our partners that are working with our schools and young people, the impact of that. And then also in the room, we had obviously the practitioners. So I think 75% was practitioners in the room as well. And that toing and froing of, we hear you, but we hear you, and it was just an incredible experience. So that first day was really a sort of immersion of what's going on, what's happening in the country. And also our young people went out to the schools and listened to young people. So what was needed in the future from these other agencies? What are the academics telling us? What are the practitioners telling us are some barriers? What's working for them? What do we need to do? But most importantly, what are our young people saying to us that is working, not working? So we took that all on board, and the sort of main themes that were coming out, emerging themes, the importance of that entrepreneurial mindset. Absolutely, that skill is going to help every young person to go through the world as it is just now, being really creative, resilient. And we talk about that. But how can we do that without that transformational sort of experience of going through that process, being really empathetic, being self-aware, and being able to solve those problems within context. Within the context is really important. That was really made clear to me, that it has to be within context, and essential to navigate that, the uncertainty of the world, challenges in life and just in work, and learn from success and failure. I've seen a lot of reports where young people are just so scared to make a mistake. We need to help them understand that that's how we learn. That's how I still learn. So that was really good, that emerging theme. But the one that I really liked is that impact that this can have, this entrepreneurship, which people hadn't connected. It's contributing to the social change we need to see. And that's what our young people are telling us loud and clear, that they want that desire. So I guess those are the themes that came out in our sort of big ideas, which is where we came to at the very end of the process. I mean, we're not at the very end, but we've come up with sort of 4 big ideas that sort of encapsulates everything that we've talked about there, and more of what we think should be involved in this new curriculum.
Again, that's all super interesting. Like around that, and you've kind of partly answered like some of my next question in terms of what surprised you the most. From that. So that kind of commitment, or the link to entrepreneurship and sort of social change, around that. I think that's really interesting. But I'm also interested, is there anything else that surprised you? And in particular, I'm really interested about the children, young people's engagement, which has been a key part of like all of this work, around that. Yeah. And again, I think I really want to emphasize a key part in a meaningful way, around that. I'm super interested, for example, whether when you're out in your schools and settings testing some of the thinking around this, I mean, was entrepreneurship as a term, was that recognized by the children and young people, or how does that, what did that look like?
So like I started, the big surprise was how people didn't understand what this was, and our young people, it would understand that term if they've come across it. Yeah. If they hadn't, no, absolutely not. But when you told them about the concept of it and the skills, they were really, really interested, and said that they all needed that, and they all would love to experience that. Yeah. And I went to quite a few different schools, and that was the main thing. But the main thing was the ones that had, and I guess that you asked me what surprised me. So the surprise was how little was known about the other things that what entrepreneurship is. But the name itself doesn't really lend well to help you understand that, to be honest. But also that sort of the impact, hearing from the young people and how much it had impacts them. I could read reports, and I read reports, but hearing that face to face really affected me. That was a real, right, okay, these young people, I've read lots of reports of telling me they're demanding that, but hearing it from them, the impact it had on them, that was really, not even surprising, but it really inspired me, and it inspired me to take that back to the group, because the group, when they heard that mobilised them even more. Like, let's go, it was really nice.
And it is. I mean, there's been a lot of energy around all these different groups, But I mean, maybe this is partly, associated with folks that have got an entrepreneurial mindset. But the energy in the room was great, wasn't it? I mean, like even in some of your big online meetings, where sometimes energy can be a little bit flat because we're all in sort of separate spaces. I mean, it was really there, in the chat and in the powerful words that people were using in the active contributions, like around all of that. Which, and that's interesting. Sort of leading to the next question. Really, is I suppose, we're painting a very, very positive picture around this, but there will have been difficulties, and tensions and things to kind of navigate as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What were some of the difficulties that you came across?
I mean, I've had the privilege to train in service design through this role. And service design itself is one of the most difficult things to do. Yeah. It's really difficult. And I'd say the most difficult part was, as you said, we definitely brought people into the room that didn't believe in it, didn't really had that much experience into it, because you need that to make sure they're moulding their opinion. A lot of fixed mindsets across sometimes. So the most difficult part would be to get people out their own lane and see the bigger picture. But then, as soon as when that happens, then you had to mould and dance about your feet and make it happen, change the work you were doing, and align it so that was allowing that to unfold. Now, that was difficult. Having the diversity in the room is both amazing but also really difficult. And I think the day where we actually came, because we had sort of 6 different groups in day 3, 6 different sort of ideas, the big ideas. I could see some really golden threads through them, but I could also see where some people were trying to hold on to some of their things. and trying to navigate a collective opinion and a decision on that was quite difficult. But also probably one of the best things I've done in my career. It was pretty amazing. I mean, I think I had to lie down in a dark room after it, but it was incredible. And when I could show afterwards, when they all went home, they were exhausted as well. But when I showed afterwards all their pieces, how it did all joint together, everyone bought into it and everyone agreed to it. Because sometimes people are holding on to their work, which we all do as human beings. But when you can see the collective picture and the critical friends coming in, so the critical friends are people that were not involved in the day, but looking at it from the outside, but interested in the work, really helped to cement that we had done the right thing there, and taking that back to them was really important. And just some of the language we needed to change from the critical friends and the young people's perspective, because we were very good at writing things in adult language, which makes no sense to them.
That's brilliant around that. And there's a lot in there, and thanks for mentioning the critical friends, around that, because I mean that's again been an important part of the process. If you like that notion of when if you're involved in the co-creation of it, like over time you feel almost protective about it, so you don't like that challenge. So having that kind of external view that comes in to be able to challenge, that's important. And as we mentioned already, we've really invested in service design throughout the whole of this work, which is an incredibly powerful, transformative process if it's done right, around that. And we know there's lots of examples of service design not being done right, at the moment, and co-creation not being done, in the right way. But the point I guess I want to make, which you hinted at, is that it's powerful, but boy, it's exhausting as well. It's exhausting for everybody in the room, as they do that. So a couple more questions just to ask then, Nicola, if that's okay. So just the first one being, then I suppose, what's the most important question that we need to ask, like during this work, or as this work continues from here, I suppose?
I just a very clear statement is, how can we ensure that we plan to build and capture entrepreneurial capability in all our young people through that real life experiential learning? So that's got to be kept right the way through this work. That was made very clear to me, that it can't be chopped up, it can't be bits of it. That experience of that real life experiential learning, working with your community, actually creates that opportunity. So that's what we've got to keep that front and centre, because it's not easy, and it's easier to put it into a little box, and it can't be put into a little box because that's happened before. That hasn't really worked, and actually our young people are demanding it, but so is our country. It's policy. We're needing it for our economy as well. Scotland needs us to do this too. It's not just the right thing to do. Our country needs us to do this as well. So that's what I'd say.
And again, like, we have fallen foul of that before, haven't we? And entrepreneurial hour, or entrepreneurial afternoon, and that's not to say that those one-off experiences aren't important, but they've got to be taken into contact with the totality of the experiences that we build up over time, with that skills development as well. And
that's no fault, because it's just we have just kept adding things onto the curriculum, so it's no fault of anybody. And that's what we're doing just now, isn't it? We're actively looking at how can we make this better for everybody, because it's quite a lot what we're asking for people to do.
Yeah. So we've hinted at, obviously we're working towards, I guess, sort of like trying to finish this initial sort of the tranche of the work, around that, and we're hoping to to publish some of the findings from all of these kind of cross-curricular themes, probably before the October break. Around that, will be after the summer holidays now. But specifically, what's next for the kind of the entrepreneurship work around this? What's on the horizon over the next couple of months after we've had a good summer break?
So I think the bit that we're wrestling with just now is that the last session we had with everybody was, well, how are we going to do this? We've gone through how are we going to do this, and where we're currently exploring is where does it fit into this new curriculum, ensuring those sort of transformational experiences are available for all our young people, but again, as I said, in a meaningful way for our practitioners and our young people. So what we're working on just now, it's quite interesting, because we've listened to our young people, we've listened to the other core groups from different subject areas, and where we've shared our work, and where do they align, where can we align them? So I think that's where we are just now. We're trying to look at where's natural places of alignment for all of our work to go. And it's been really interesting working with everybody, because I can see clear alignment with social justice. I can see clear alignment with creativity. How can we make it so that the alignment's there without losing the individuality of all these things that we have? So that's where we are just now. And as you say, I've been part of that process of the document that's coming out and that's a sort of suggestion of where we're going, and that's going to evolve because we're still working with lots of different groups and we'll all feed into that. So it's going to be a working document, which is really quite exciting. And we'll go back to the group to say, well, this is where we are now, because they asked, the group were asked, where would it work? And that's where the practitioners in the room were absolutely gold dust.
And again, like some what you said there, I mean that word alignment, I think, is so important because this is a different type of word now, but I think that alignment is key to declutter. And declutter is a term that we hear a lot about in Scottish education. Like, how do we declutter the curriculum? How do we prevent curriculum overload? Around that. So just that notion of bringing everything together, I think, is just such an important one. But again, a tricky task. But one that I think that we can achieve.
I think so. And then, if we keep the purpose of the education system right at front and centre at every decision with that young person in front of us, I think we'll do it.
Yeah. So last question, Nicola, around that, and not necessarily an easy one, around that, but I know that you'll take it in your stride. And the question, I suppose, is that if we get this right, what's that going to mean for children and young people in Scotland?
Honestly, in the world that we've got just now, it's so uncertain. It's going to develop that sense of agency for our young people that means that they're allowed to solve the problems that they're seeing and facing, both as an individual. We've got, we're looking at lots of things young people are dealing with. It's the first generation that have gone through a lot of things. Both individually, how can they cope with that, and also the world around them? Give them that. Well, you can do this, and these skills and competencies that they can acquire and develop through this work. It would allow our young people not just to survive, I think I said that before, but to thrive in this world. And our young people can actually develop the skills that are, the skills I can see, the skills we're talking about. I'm using them, I still need them. So if we can equip a young person before they enter and even make an impact while they're at school with their community, themselves, their family, I think that's powerful. I think that's the point of Scottish education.
And that is a really, really powerful sort of note to finish on. So I think, Nicola, we'll finish there. I mean, I know that we could have talked probably for hours, like on this topic, but we did promise that we'd sort of try and keep these podcasts down to between sort of 20 and 30 minutes. And I think that we've just achieved that. So well done us around that. Folks, I just kind of wanted to sort of say for the people that are listening, just thanks so much for joining us today around this. If you've not listened to the other mini podcasts as part of the curriculum improvement cycle, then please check them out as well. We've been exploring everything from learning for sustainability to for digital literacy to finance to learning for sustainability, and that's been a really great contribution, I think, on entrepreneurship. I remember you can find these podcasts on the Education Scotland YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts from. Nicola, thanks again for this. We're recording this just before the summer break, so this is going to be the last things that we do before we head off on holidays. And if any of our listeners are listening to this while you're on your holidays, around that, then please turn this podcast off and get back to the pool and enjoy your summer break. Nicola, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe for notification of when a new episode is published. If there is a topic you would like to hear featured on this podcast, get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. Follow us on our social media channels for all the latest news from Education Scotland. Education Scotland is a Scottish Government executive agency charged with supporting quality and improvement in Scottish education.